I can't believe my luck this week. I ought to go buy a lottery ticket. Not only did I find my long-lost Bumpstock hidden in my range bag, but the anti-gunner's attempt to ban it fell flat on its face once again. Today, I'll give you details on how GOA spiked the ball with Bumpstocks. Hi, I'm Ben, and you're watching the Minuteman Moment. Now, before we get into the video, I wanted to take a second to talk about Goals, GOA's first annual convention. It's going to be held in Knoxville, Tennessee, August 17th to 18th. Go to gunowners.org/goals to register now. Alright, now back to the video. Not only did the Bumpstock ban get killed in the courts earlier this month, but we also killed it in Congress a second time. You can watch our previous videos on Garland versus Cargill, where we share the details on why this is such an important legal victory. The most important thing to remember is if Bumpstocks were determined to be machine guns, then all semi-automatic firearms could be a machine gun. Since nearly all firearms are semi-automatic, this would have opened the door for a huge gun ban. Tell that to the next redcoat who supports a Bumpstock ban, or your Uncle Dick, which is a fitting name for Senator Klobuchar's uncle. Now, the Constitution allows for machine guns, but our laws don't. All GOA is trying to do here is ensure our laws reflect the Constitution's Second Amendment. Another important thing that the Supreme Court cleared up is that this is not some small technical change made by the ATF. This rule had massive implications, and if the government wanted to pass such a rule, it had to happen through Congress. Since the attempt to ban guns through a government agency like the ATF and the courts failed, anti-gun politicians tried to pass unconstitutional legislation the right way, through Congress. Now, voting and passing a law is always a last resort for the anti-gunners, because unlike creating laws through unelected bodies such as the ATF or an anti-gun court, passing a law through the legislature means you're putting your name on the record. Heaven forbid elected officials actually vote, right? This is another exercise in what we like to call failure theater. It's a favorite practice of congressional leadership. They make a big show about how they tried to pass a bill to fix something that their constituents asked for when they fully know it won't actually pass. But they'll use the footage from that floor debate for some campaign ads later. Moments like this are not about passing laws, but theater. Specifically, fantasy designed to fail. The main actor for this failure theater was Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico, who introduced the Banning Unlawful Machine Gun Parts, or BUMP Act. This bill is far more extreme than the original ATF rule. This bill would add semi-automatic firearms with modifications to a list of items prohibited by the NFA, not just Bumpstocks. Obviously, the anti-gunners ignored that fact. And I promise you, their ads will cut out all the parts when pro-gun senators point this out. We know this bill was designed to fail, because even though it was introduced a year ago, it hasn't gone through the proper process, even though they knew the Supreme Court case was upcoming. And it received a unanimous consent vote rather than a roll call vote. What a unanimous consent vote does is assume that the entire Senate agrees to whatever is being voted on, unless someone speaks up. Now, this is different from what people typically think of as voting, which is called a roll call vote. But that's a different story for another time. So come with me, let's watch this smooth-brained senator make the unanimous consent request.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
We in a quorum?
Yes.
I ask unanimous consent that the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, I am proud to come to the floor today to stand with my good friend and a great leader on this issue, Senator Martin Heinrich, on a matter of life and death.
But don't worry, guys. Senator Heinrich is one of those real gunners that thinks he gets to decide what has a legitimate purpose.
Bumpstocks are an attachment that modifies semi-automatic firearms to dramatically increase their rate of fire, allowing them to operate as fully automatic weapons. They make it possible to shoot hundreds of rounds a minute. And let me be real clear, as a firearms owner myself, there's no legitimate use for a Bumpstock.
That's pretty funny, because he thinks a Glock switch, which should be legal for you and me, only lets them act like machine guns, because he's the one with common sense around here.
And it would ban things like Glock switches, which also let semi-automatic firearms act as fully automatic firearms.
Now, Senator, if you want someone with some real knowledge on gun laws, give GOA a call. We'd happily explain why your bill is garbage. Good news for all of you totally new Bumpstock owners out there. Senator Pete Ricketts of Nebraska stood up and objected to this vote.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, reserving the right to object.
Senator from Nebraska.
Welcome to another day in the Democrats' summer of show votes. We need to be very clear why the majority leader is now holding this show vote. The Supreme Court made a decision last week that he didn't like. A 6-3 majority of the Supreme Court ruled that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives overstepped their authority when they tried to reclassify Bumpstocks as machine guns.
Bear in mind, only one senator needs to object. So this isn't an indictment for other senators who didn't make a floor appearance. Remember, this is failure theater, and choosing not to engage in the theater is not a bad thing. While the only thing the senator had to do to kill this vote was to object, Senator Ricketts went further to talk about what exactly was wrong with this bill.
So this bill may be called the Bump Act, but it's not really about bump stocks. This bill is about banning as many firearm accessories as possible, giving ATF broad authority to ban most semi-automatic firearms. And let's be honest, does anyone seriously believe this lawless-abiding administration would interpret this law in a way that respects law-abiding gun owners? Not. On this and other issues, the Biden administration has repeatedly expanded previously interpretations of our laws in ways that go far beyond what even the Obama administration was comfortable with. And they were no friends of the Second Amendment.
You're totally right, Senator. I've got to agree with you here. I totally trust this administration to respect my gun rights. Not. And that's that. The bill is dead, and we defeated another attempt to ban bump stocks and more.
Reserve the rest of my time, but this will not be the last time you hear about these devices on the floor of the Senate.
Now, some of you may have wished for a full vote on this bill to get some names down so you can bombard them in the upcoming election. But this isn't the best strategy. We prefer bad bills just go die in a hole and never see the light of day, let alone get to a full vote. The other lack of effort here by the anti-gunners demonstrates we've crushed them on this issue. After 6 years of litigation, we killed this second attempt at a bump stock ban in 5 minutes. So much for that 4D chess argument about it being harder to stop a bump stock ban in Congress instead of having to go through the courts. But I'm not just talking about Democrats here. Republicans are also signaling they're ready to cave. According to CNN, Senator John Cornyn of Texas, the nincompoop responsible for the biggest anti-gun legislation in 30 years, told reporters, "I've been involved in some negotiations regarding firearms. I'd be happy to listen to what people propose. The only reason anyone would be in negotiations regarding firearms is they're ready to give away more of your gun rights. Why the weasel of the Senate wants to pass another gun control bill, even when anti-gun groups are claiming gun crime is going down in a post-Bruin America, is beyond me." When asked if Congress should just do something, which always seems to be code for chipping away at your Second Amendment rights, Senator Cornyn responded with, "I need to see what other senators want to do." Remember, Senator Cornyn wants Mitch McConnell's job as Senate Majority Leader. Now, I've always thought it was an inspiring leadership trait to ignore what you campaigned on and instead see what your oligarchic friends feel like doing instead. Anyone who remotely cares about the integrity of the Second Amendment should consider Senator Heinrich's Bump Act dead on arrival. But some GOP senators are afraid to state their position. Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia said, "I think my understanding of the decision is that Congress has to act on this. We'll see if someone brings something forward, and then I'll look at it." The only action the Senate needs to take on guns is to remove the unconstitutional laws already on the books. Now, if you're from West Virginia, or you know a pro-gun person there, give her office a call and tell her exactly where she ought to stand on a bump stock ban. You'll see the direct number of her office in the description below. Now, overall, this is a pro-gun victory against the people who just can't seem to wrap their heads around what unconstitutional means, whether we tell them or the Supreme Court does. But we aren't letting our guards down. GOA stands ready to fight against any gun ban in Congress, in the states, and the courts. Now, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with GOA's latest fights for your rights.